This is the Grand Canyon Hiker-Dude Show, powered by Hike Tribe, a community dedicated to helping each other hike our best hikes. Now, here's the host of the Grand Canyon Hiker-Dude Show, my hubby and the co-founder of Hike Tribe, Brian Special.
All right, thanks, Zena. If you're planning a rim-to-rim and have never done it before, I'll bet you didn't have the easiest time deciding which direction to go. Do I go north to south or south to north? Well, it's not always up to you. Oftentimes, it's up to logistics, primarily how you're going to get from one rim to the other after you finish or before you start, and where you can get lodging, which is extremely difficult to do on the north rim. Today, we're going to assume you're starting on the north side, which typically means you've gotten hotel reservations at Grand Canyon Lodge, which is 2 miles from the trailhead, or Kaibab Lodge, about 12 miles outside the park, or Jacob Lake Inn, about 45 miles away. Or maybe you were able to reserve a camping spot. Regardless, you'll be dropping in from the North Kaibab trailhead for a 23.5-mile bucket list adventure if you'll ascend to the South Rim on Bright Angel Trail, or 21 miles if South Kaibab is your route. Most choose to ascend Bright Angel. While longer by 2.5 miles, it's less rugged and more shaded than South Kaibab. And during rim-to-rim season from May 15th through October 15th, it has 3 water stops, while South Kaibab has none. If it's in the warmer months, it is always advised to ascend Bright Angel over South Kaibab. Though, as you hopefully know by now, if you're hiking rim-to-rim in 2025, Bright Angel is not an option until at least October 1st because of ongoing construction involving the Trans-Canyon waterline. So you will be forced to ascend South Kaibab, which brings with it a whole set of potentially life-threatening challenges in the warmer months. If you have not heard about this, we break it down in detail in episodes 73 and 75 of this podcast, so please go back and listen to those and then plan your hike wisely. But today, we're only going as far as Phantom Ranch and the Colorado River. And we're doing so during late October, which you will hear me say over and over is just about the best time of year to be in the canyon. It can be significantly more pleasant and just a better hiking experience due mainly to the absence of the brutal and lingering Arizona heat. So here now is the start of our journey and what you can expect to experience as you descend majestic North Kaibab all the way to the river. Note that you will hear me reference South Kaibab. That's because this was the first part of my 2-day rim-to-rim-to-rim, and I was ascending South Kaibab that day because the weather was cool and perfect. I had stayed at Jacob Lake Inn the night before, left my car at the North Kaibab trailhead, hiked across, taxied to Bright Angel Lodge, and then hiked back to my car the next morning. This is the Grand Canyon Hiker-Dude Show, powered by Hike Tribe. We are going on a rim-to-rim today, North Kaibab to South Kaibab, 21 miles with about 5,800 vertical feet lost on the way all the way to the river, over 14 miles down North Kaibab. There's already snow on the ground here on the North Rim. This is why they close the North Rim services, the lodge, restaurants, everything closes down on October 15th because this is one of the most remote and can be one of the snowiest places in the United States. So they shut it down on October 15th, but the gate remains open so you can still access the North Rim by vehicle all the way until December 1st, unless a major snowstorm forces it to be closed earlier. But looking forward to today. This is the best time of the year to be hiking, late October into November. This is the best time to be hiking in the canyon because you do not have to worry about the heat, so you don't have to start early in the morning because it's so much hotter at the bottom. It can be 20 to 30 degrees hotter at the bottom of the canyon, so you can't be fooled by what's going on up here when it's, it can be 70 degrees up here at the North Rim or at the South Rim, and it can be 100 degrees down at the river. So you got to keep that in mind. That's why late October all the way through November, absolutely the best time to be hiking in the canyon. You don't have to leave at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning when it's still dark outside, so you miss all the views. You can hike in the daylight as long as you want. This is the time to do it. So north to south, rim to rim today. Let's get after this, shall we? Thermometer in my car said it was 14 degrees this morning. Now that's probably an exaggeration. I think those are typically off by 10 or 15 degrees, but it's still cold, definitely below freezing, probably I would say in the low 20s right now. There's some snow on the trail, but I don't think there's any ice, which is a good thing because I violated one of my one of my own rules, which is this time of year always carry micro spikes no matter what, just in case. I think I'm gonna get away with it, but this is a lesson because I didn't bring them. So always bring micro spikes when there's been snow over the past couple of weeks, no matter what, because you never know, especially on the North Rim, because it's so remote and isolated up here, and snowstorms can happen in the blink of an eye. So always carry those micro spikes because you don't want to get caught walking on ice. The first part of North Kaibab is fairly straightforward and relatively gentle. You're basically descending through a forest, so it will be a bit before you get your first expansive view of the canyon, but only a little bit. Just 7/10 of a mile and 460 vertical feet down the trail, you'll see a small sign and know that you've reached your first big photo op of the day. This is the first point of interest, I guess you could call it. This is Coconino Overlook, 7/10 of a mile down the North Kaibab Trail. And this is where you get your first kind of expansive view down into Roaring Springs Canyon. You're never going to get the real panoramic canyon views on North Kaibab. That's more for Bright Angel and definitely for South Kaibab, which has the best views in the entire canyon. But the North Rim has its own vibe to it. You're up here in the pines, higher elevation. It's 1,000 feet higher than the South Rim is. And Coconino Overlook, 7/10 of a mile down. This is a good place for folks who are just day hiking and maybe dipping their toes into canyon hiking to come down here and check this out and maybe get inspired to do more in the future. Next up will be Supai Tunnel, which is 1.7 miles down the trail total from the trailhead. And that's the first place where you would have a chance at seasonal water. It'll be off today. And pit toilets. So that's a good place to shoot for. And that's a mile down the trail from here and 1.7 from the trailhead. The trail really is in fantastic shape right now. Not as much traffic on it the past few weeks, and especially the mule traffic. When the North Rim services close on October 15th, well, the mule traffic is stopped as well. The tourist train, so to speak, go down this trail to Supai Tunnel, 1.7 miles down, and then they turn around and come back up, but they do it a few times a day, and the mules create a lot of damage to these trails. The trail can become really rutted out, and worse than that, there's a lot of mule surprises left behind. So it can get kind of gross in the middle of the summer, but you don't have to worry about that when it's this time of the year. Yeah, and don't worry about seeing the mules. They are an iconic part of the Grand Canyon experience. If you do see a mule train coming, just step to the side, grab a photo or two, and let them pass. The mules do have right of way, and they only go as far as Supai Tunnel on the North Rim. Another advantage of this time of the year is the isolation. More than a mile down now and have not seen a single soul. The only sounds have been the leaves, the fall leaves falling off the trees and fluttering to the ground. It's the only time I've heard anything. So that's an advantage. If you like isolation, this is another reason why this is a good time of the year to be out here. I did the same hike 2 weeks ago, right before the North Rim closed. It was October, right around October 10th or something like that. And it was, I call it Runner Palooza, because there were so many trail runners out. They were everywhere. It was so busy, so crowded. Understandably, that's what people shoot for typically, is the middle of October. Everybody tries to get it done before the North Rim services shut down. But if you can swing it and get up here after everything closes on October 15th, knowing that it's still open to vehicles, and you can still stay at Jacob Lake Inn, which is open year-round. It's 45 miles away, which is where I stayed last night, or you can stay at Kaibab Lodge, which is open until November 4th. Then if you can swing that, a little more inconvenient. The shuttle still runs between the North and South Rim on a limited schedule until North Rim closes on December 1st. So a little more inconvenient, a little tougher logistically, but if you can swing it it's going to pay off, because we've dealt with a pretty horrific summer and fall in Arizona. It was just so hot, and you don't have to worry about that anymore. So if you can swing it this time of the year, this is the time to be here. I'm going to keep on saying it. Supai Tunnel rest area, 1.7 miles from the North Kaibab trailhead. And we've gone down over 1,000 feet now in elevation. This is the tunnel right here. Not a lot to it, just cutting through this rock formation here. Supai Tunnel is about 30 feet long and was blasted right through a rock formation before the North Kaibab Trail opened in 1928. Really, it's worth paying attention to the engineering marvel that North Kaibab is just about the whole way down. Just stop and imagine what it was like to carve such a trail in such a harsh environment almost 100 years ago. Just an unfathomable feat of human ingenuity. Just out of Supai, you can see the Red Wall Bridge down there, famous landmark on North Kaibab. That is about a mile away from here, somewhere between 2 3/4 and 3 miles from the trailhead. So that's our next big stop. Pretty steep switchbacks to get there, but Red Wall Bridge is the next point of interest. One thing the trail builders weren't able to avoid, those incessant steps that you've probably heard the horror stories of. The good news is there aren't as many of them as there are on South Kaibab or Bright Angel, but you still do need to be ready. Those steps that we just went down right there are a decent example of the notorious steps that you'll find on North Kaibab, South Kaibab, and Bright Angel, and something you really need to be ready for. Not just going up, not just the difficulty of climbing and going up those steps, but coming down them, because that's what really puts a beating on your legs, and that's why having trekking poles is so important. Probably the most important piece of advice I could give anyone is to use poles. If you've never used them before, practice with them, but bring them to the canyon, because they really help take some of the shock off of that downhill. And you're going to need your legs later on in the hike, because the unique nature of canyon hiking obviously is you go down first and then up. So when you're going down and beating up your quads, beating up your knees because of the shock going down those steps, you're really kind of trashing your legs, and you could be in some trouble, and at least in some discomfort when you really need them for the climb out. So trekking poles are absolutely vital in the canyon.
Bright Angel Outfitters is now Hike Tribe, a community for all of us. Join the tribe at hiketribe.club and our private Facebook group, Hike Tribe Grand Canyon, the official group of the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show. Hike Tribe, let's go get it.
The stretch from Supai Tunnel to Red Wall Bridge is probably the steepest you will face. It's only a mile, but you'll lose about 750 feet over that mile as you descend down a long set of switchbacks through the red dirt, and you'll be able to actually see the bridge, the Red Wall Bridge, almost the entire way. Far down below, it'll make for one of the most memorable pictures you can get on North Kaibab. All right, we made it to Red Wall Bridge. That is about getting close to 3 miles from the North Kaibab trailhead that we have descended already. Still haven't seen a single person out here. Now, kind of a cruel trick. I'm gonna get a little uphill. Look at this. You got uphill for a little ways before you get into the Eye of the Needle section, which is the most iconic, coolest, most amazing section of North Kaibab, because you're right on the edge of the cliff for quite a ways. Then Roaring Springs, then Manzanita, which is essentially the base of the North Rim. Red Wall Bridge gets its name because it's basically the gateway to the canyon's Red Wall limestone formation, which you can see right here. You can see how defined it is. And Red Wall Bridge essentially sits at the top of that, so it's the gateway to the Red Wall limestone, which we will be walking basically right alongside. The trail you're going to see here in the Eye of the Needle section is just carved into the Red Wall limestone, and it is so amazing. That's where you'll see a lot of iconic pictures and people posting their photos from this section coming up. Can't wait to show it to you. Oh, by the way, still have not seen a single person out here in all the time we've been out here. Oh, the Eye of the Needle. This is just about as good as it gets. It's not long after Red Wall Bridge, so just after 3 miles or so and about 2,200 vertical feet from the trailhead, that you'll notice the trail start to appear like it's just carved into the side of a cliff. This lasts for a fairly long time. I'd say off and on for a mile or so, and it is just a thrilling part of the trail to be on. Enjoy it. My favorite stretch on North Kaibab for sure, and maybe my favorite stretch on any of the corridor trails. It's just spectacular being able to walk along the edge like that. And just amazing that man somehow carved that into the side of the red wall limestone. Incredible. By the way, I know that's a spot where a lot of people get pretty nervous about, especially if you have a fear of heights, but I'm here to tell you, the trail is very wide and it's smooth for the most part, and you never feel like you're in any danger. So don't let the fear of that section right there keep you from coming to the canyon and experiencing a Grand Canyon hike. If you get nervous, you can just stay to the side of the canyon wall. The trail's plenty wide. Really nothing to worry about as long as you stay on the trails. Then you come out of it and you see the pump house down there in Roaring Springs Canyon. And pretty soon you'll start hearing the waterfall at Roaring Springs, which is the natural aquifer that provides water for the entire canyon, including everything that happens on the north rim and the south rim. So that's the pump house down there that you see. And again, we'll start hearing that the sound of the waterfalls here pretty soon. But this is just the coolest section of the entire trail. Roaring Springs, 4.7 miles from the trailhead. That right there is what provides all of the drinking water in the canyon and on both rims. So if you're taking a shower on the south rim, that's where your water came from. If you're getting a drink on the north rim, that's where your water came from. Pretty darn cool. An engineering marvel. Next stop, Manzanita. By the way, Roaring Springs also is what forms Bright Angel Creek, which will be our constant companion now for the rest of the hike all the way to the river. It'll be running right alongside of us for a good chunk of the way until we leave it, or I should say it leaves us and it empties into the Colorado in about 9 miles or so. Yeah, by the time you're at Roaring Springs, you have descended more than 3,000 vertical feet over those 4.7 miles. And the Manzanita Rest Area, essentially the base of the North Rim, is now just 0.7 of a mile away. Manzanita Rest Area, 5.4 miles and 3,541 feet below the North Rim. Making progress. This is probably the nicest rest stop that we have on any of the corridor trails. Great place to stop and grab water when it's on, which is seasonal. It's not on in the wintertime when it gets cold because they're afraid about the pipes freezing. You have access to Bright Angel Creek, which is right there if you need to filter water. And you have pit toilets. This place is usually jammed. It is packed. Last time I was here, again, a couple weeks ago, it was just packed here, man. There was no place to even sit and to look at it today. So again, late October, all the way through November, best time to be hiking the canyon. Let's take a break and then keep on going. After Manzanita, you'll cross a bridge over Bright Angel Creek and notice that the trail has leveled off, and with a few exceptions, this is how it will feel over the next 8.5 miles to the river, even though you'll lose around 2,000 vertical feet over that span. Yes, it still feels relatively flat. Soon after Manzanita, be on the lookout for your first waterfall of the day. Split Rock Falls. This is a waterfall that you see when you get just past Manzanita, between Manzanita and Cottonwood. It is very, very cool. That again is Bright Angel Creek, which we'll be walking pretty close to for the duration. It's not always accessible, but it's there. So this is why you always carry a filter in the canyon, because if the pipeline is broken, if water service is disrupted, you can always filter out of Bright Angel Creek. So always carry a filter in the canyon, especially in the warmer months. But even now, no matter what, always carry a filter. 1.4 miles from Manzanita, you'll come across the only campground on North Kaibab, Cottonwood, where you'll find pit toilets and water, but it's so close to Manzanita that if you're deciding on where you'll stop for lunch or a snack, kind of a longer break, my recommendation would be Manzanita. Cottonwood Campground, pit toilets here and water as well, seasonally. Though it's on here more often than not. About 6.8 miles from North Kaibab Trailhead. and we have about 7 miles or so to get to Phantom Ranch, maybe just under 7 miles to Phantom Ranch. So Cottonwood really is the halfway point between the river, Phantom Ranch area, Bright Angel Campground area, and the North Kaibab trailhead. So that's progress. Next we get into the frying pan, which is a big open expanse that you don't want to get yourself caught in the middle of a hot summer day because there's nowhere to hide. After that, the box, and then after that will be Phantom Ranch. Onward. This is what you would call the frying pan. About a 3 to 4 mile stretch between Cottonwood and the box that is just exposed and open. You can see, I mean, look all around me. You're just exposed out here. There's nowhere to hide. So the thinking is this is not the place that you want to be when there's any kind of heat going on and direct sun exposure, because it can be extremely, extremely dangerous in the summer. So you want to, if you're going to do this in any of the warmer months of the year, which is most of the months, you're going to want to check our Grand Canyon Shade Tracker. Go to gcshadetracker.com, gcshadetracker.com, and you want to time it the best you can so that you're in the box and you're in the frying pan, preferably when there's a lot of shade. But then you also need shade for the climb out, the hardest part of the hike. So check the Shade Tracker. It'll give you a lot of basic advice on what to do, because you'll be able to see exactly when and where you will have shade on the trail every day of the year, every hour of every day of the year. It's pretty cool technology. gcshadetracker.com. Please check it out. Be safe. Just can't be said enough. The frying pan and the box are dangerous enough that they should be avoided at all costs in the middle of a warm to hot day. Those are just not pleasant places to be. An alternative could be spending the day cooling off at nearby Ribbon Falls, which will mean a short side hike that's about a mile round trip. There are 2 ways to get to Ribbon. You'll want to look for the signs, which are right next to the trail, and if you have budgeted time for it, I can just about promise you it will be one of the most memorable experiences of your entire hike. This is one of 2 junctions where you can cross Bright Angel Creek and get to Ribbon Falls. The bridge has been out for a few years as of 2024, and it's supposed to be going back up here pretty soon in 2025, I think. So the consensus is the easiest way to access Ribbon Falls is the second junction, which is on the other side of Asinine Hill here, which we're just starting to go up, which is a nice little incline in the middle of our descent down to the river. Thus the name Asinine Hill. I can think of some other names for it too. One thing about Ribbon Falls, if you don't want to take the side trip to go see it, if you don't want to have to get your feet wet, which you probably will, and then follow all the social trails and try to figure out which way to go to get there. And it's about, I don't know, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile off the trail. But if you don't want to do all that and go to that trouble, then you can just see it from the trail. Yes, you can see Ribbon from Asinine Hill if you remember to look up and off to your right. You will eventually see the falls off in the distance. Next up, just a mile or so after the second Ribbon Falls sign, you'll notice the canyon walls begin to narrow. This is the box, one of the most famous stretches of North Kaibab, about 4.5 miles. You can see where it gets its name because the canyon walls just kind of close in on you on both sides. So it's got this box-like effect. Again, another place you don't want to be in the middle of the summertime with direct sun, because these close together walls have kind of like an oven effect, and it can get insanely hot in here in the worst times of the year. But this is about a 4.5 mile stretch. Next up, Phantom Ranch. Oh, the box. It is beautiful, but it can feel like it goes on forever, especially when you're tired and you don't really have a point of reference to how far you still have to go. There are 4 bridges contained within the box, 2 fairly close together in the beginning, then a long stretch with nothing, and 2 more relatively close together toward the end. But you won't know you are out of the box until you finally see a mileage sign. and then a sign welcoming you to the Phantom Ranch area. And then just like that, you are there. Be looking for the Phantom Ranch Canteen, grab some lemonade, send a postcard, which will be delivered by mule train out of the canyon, and take a well-deserved break. And if you're up for it, continue on to Boat Beach and dip your feet in the icy Colorado. It will feel oh so good on those worn-out feet, which have now covered 14 miles and 5,860 vertical feet to the river you now stand in. And that is what to expect when hiking from the North Rim to the Colorado River. At that point, if you don't have reservations at Phantom or Bright Angel Campground, well, I hate to break it to you, but you've got a long way to go. About 10 miles and 4,400 vertical feet up Bright Angel Trail, or 7.5 and 4,800 feet up South Kaibab. Please do your research and choose wisely. You do not want to be going up South Kaibab in the warmer months because it's more exposed to the direct sun. It is steeper, and there is no water available the entire way. Bright Angel is difficult as well, but you should have access to water, shade in the late afternoon, and you'll benefit from finishing in Grand Canyon Village versus needing to shuttle or taxi back to the village from South Kaibab. Now, if you're listening to this in 2025, you hopefully know by now that the Bright Angel route is not available until at least October 1st. That's because the River Trail, the mile-long stretch between the Silver Bridge and the River Rest House, which is technically the head of Bright Angel, is closed for the Trans-Canyon Waterline project. That cuts off all access to Bright Angel from the bottom of the canyon and means if you're doing a north to south, rim to rim before October 1st, you will be forced up the far more dangerous South Kaibab Trail. I say dangerous primarily because of the heat and exposure. When you combine that with the exertion you'll be putting out, well, it's a recipe for serious trouble if you aren't prepared. For more, please go back and listen to episodes 73 and 75 of this podcast, episodes 73 and 75. We lay out in detail the options for you to be as safe as possible. And of course, this is a regular topic of conversation in our Facebook group, so feel free to ask any questions there as well. The heat in the canyon is simply not to be messed with, and it's on Coach Arnie's mind as well.
Hey guys, this is Coach Arnie here with another Grand Canyon tip of the week. And once again, thank you, Brian, for allowing me to bring some wisdom and share some insight with you guys. Really appreciate it. Today's a little bit more serious, and that's why I like to start off with danger. Danger, we're talking about heat. And this is one that I've embraced because I came from a school of fear. I was very fearful of heat many years ago when I was competing in triathlons and really got freaked out by the heat, even though I was living here in Arizona in Phoenix. But I have learned now to embrace it. So let's look at a few things here that we can learn from because it is the number one cause of death in the canyon. And that's something you need to think about, okay? So first thing I always help people to realize is look at your trip date. I mean, if you're going at a time that it could be potentially super hot, you need to think about it. And what can you do? What can you do about that? And that's where you have to look at, could be the shade tracker, it could be when you're going to start, when you're going to finish. You got to look at all those things, your health, your fitness level, and you got to work that into your trip planning. Then the next thing that I do is I practice everything in the heat. I mean everything. My hydration, my food, my pace, the clothing I'm going to wear. Pace is huge. A lot of people think, "Oh, look at what I'm able to do in Wisconsin or Minnesota or somewhere where it's cool." And you get to the canyon and you get slammed because you're not doing that same pace. So you got to practice the pace that you think you can do in the heat. So here are some best practice tips that I like to share. Is hike in the heat if you can. Hike in the heat. One of the things that I did leading up to my R5 was I picked a date here in Phoenix where it was a scorcher. And I started at night, and it was 108 degrees. I remember when I started. And I think I finished, it was probably over 110, but I went all night, and it only broke under 100 for just a couple hours and dipped to about 90 degrees. But I did that for 15 hours. But I did that for a reason, because I wanted to feel my body and test my body and all the things I just talked about in the heat. So I didn't want to be caught by surprise. So here's a real simple tip, if you can do it, is get in the sauna. So if you're in a cold climate and you have access to a sauna, dry is best, but in 1 month you can get heat adapted. In 1 month, 3 to 5 times a week, 20 to 30 minutes, you can get heat adapted. But you got to be intentional and you got to be consistent, because if you're not, it's not going to pay off for you. But the dry sauna can get you heat adapted. But if you have access to heat, get out there, practice, practice, practice. So it's not a surprise to you when you're coming up Bright Angel and you're going through Devil's Corkscrew, or you're on South Kaibab and that sun's over your head and you're getting roasted. Please do not get caught by surprise. I love you guys. Take it seriously. The heat is real. I love you guys. Talk to you later.
Yes, taking it seriously is the best ingredient for success. That is exercise physiologist Coach Arnie. Arnie Fonseca Jr. Coach's contact information is in the show notes. If you have questions, reach out. He wants to hear from you. All right, that's it for now. My name is Brian Special, encouraging you, as always, to go hike the canyon. Take that first step. Embrace the journey. And when you get there, whether it's for time goals or taking your time, just hike your own hike and enjoy every step in the majestic Grand Canyon. We'll see you next time on the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show.